All right, and we're back with the program. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here once again on the Pop Culture Cosmos. I know a lot of fans out there who like us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos just truly, truly love their history in pop culture, and they have so many memories of what pop culture is all about. And one of those great memories I have as a younger adult in the early 90s for me was watching every week, any chance I could, The Adventures of Ren and Stimpy. And I'm going to talk today not just about Ren and Stimpy, but I've got a couple of great guests who can really provide more about that and also about the upcoming future for Ren and Stimpy as well, because I've gone on Kimo Easterwood and Ron Cicero. Kimo Easterwood and Ron Cicero, the directors of Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story. You can get right now. It's available right now. You can find out all about it at the Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story. That's available now. That documentary is available on Amazon, iTunes, YouTube, Vudu, Microsoft, Google Play, and Fandango. It's everywhere. It's available out now. You got to go ahead and check it out. It's an awesome, awesome documentary. It's getting great reviews everywhere. And if you want to know more about basically early 90s pop culture, but also one of the most popular TV events each and every week of that time period, you got to go ahead and check out Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story today, wherever you can get your video on demand. And I'm talking to the two great directors today, Kimo Easterwood and Ron Cicero. And guys, it's just great to have you on the program today.
Oh, thank you, man. Great intro.
Oh, well, I'm trying. I said alluded to real briefly. I know you guys have been through what they call the car wash already, and I feel like you've done a ton of media because I've seen already a ton of media that you guys done. I feel like I'm on the just before you get to the dryers, that last those last drapes that you go through just before you get to the end there. So hopefully I'm going to be one of the better ones that you've had. But I will be. As a fan of Ren and Stimpy, and again, it was one of the most influential and one of the most popular at times, adult-oriented cartoons of its time during that period at the Nick and Night, time slots that it had. I want to ask you this. I'll start off with you first, Ron. I want to know a little bit more about why you guys had the impetus to go ahead and create it. Were you big fans like me of Ren and Stimpy, or was it something even more?
Yeah, you may find this shocking, but neither Kimo nor myself were fans of the show. And in fact, Kimo, growing up in Hawaii, never even had seen an episode. It was really through a friend of Kimo's. I mean, he's friends with both of us, but he's close with Todd White, who's an artist, was formerly a character designer on SpongeBob. He had met John K., also known as John Kricfalusi, who is the creator of Ren and Stimpy, along with Lynn Naylor. And he had suggested for a long time that we do a Ren and Stimpy documentary. And it wasn't until a confluence of events that Kimo and I had decided to work together on the film. But and it's because we've known each other for 25 years. And we finally were just like, we got to do something together. So after about an hour's worth of research, we decided to jump in, and we're certainly glad we did, because it's been a fascinating ride, to say the least.
It has been for so many people watching your great documentary. And the reason why I say that is because it brings back so many memories. And I'm sure you guys get that all the time, both you and Kimo. Oh, I remember Ren and Stimpy was so great. Brings back so many great memories. Kimo, I want to ask you this. When people come up to you, or they send you the messages of love, or they send you that kind of outreach on social media about how this rekindles any of those fond memories, what is it like for you guys?
Well, I mean, we all have our favorite shows growing up, and even though that one wasn't one of mine, I get it. I get shows that touched people, and had a huge impact in their life. So, we love it. When people come up and they're huge fans and they love what we did, and we brought it back to light to show how amazing this show was, I mean, how can you not love that? People are really earnest and sincere, and we just love it. So don't ever think that if you see us out in public and you knew that we did this documentary, that we don't want to talk about it because, you know, we love the fans and they've always been great. So, and they're real passionate, you know. So, yeah, we love it.
Now, I want to ask you this. I know in order to catch you guys up to speed, in order to go ahead and put out a proper documentary, you had to go and relook at everything that was produced, including the reboot or the attempted reboot in the early 2000s as well. I mean, looking back upon it now, the time that you took that it caught up, did you see what all the magic of Ren and Stimpy was all about, or at least why people just gained that love for infection for that series? Ron?
Yeah, having never seen it, it was a real opportunity to look at it with new eyes. And yes, we had the context of like Adult Swim now, but with a little bit of imagination, you can imagine in the early 90s when there really wasn't anything like Beavis and Butthead or, again, anything you see on Adult Swim, it became even that much more shocking. And I don't just mean from like a gross out standpoint. I mean from, holy cow, look at how different this animation looks, and the artwork and the music, the dialogue, the voice acting, how different it was from what was going on during that time frame. You know, you look at the Scooby-Doos, etc., and even though we, of course, hold those near and dear because they were a part of our childhood, you know, from an artistic standpoint, it's impossible to not see the difference.
Absolutely. And Kimo, at its height, this was one of the most popular shows on cable television at the time, if I'm not mistaken, because it had such a high rating, I know, for a lot of people at that point in time.
Yes, it did. You know, a lot of people compare it to Nirvana. You know, nobody had ever heard Nirvana, and then they came on the scene and it blew up, and Ren and Stimpy came out at the exact same time. So it was very close to that sort of thing that happened with them, is just massive explosion of something brand new that nobody had ever seen before. And that was really, that's really what people were wanting, you know. It was in this lull, as you know from watching documentaries, just this lull of not a lot going on, and then these guys just came in and flipped the whole table on its end, and then that's what you got.
That's what you got, indeed. Once again, I'm speaking to Kimo Easterwood and Ron Cicero, the directors behind Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story, which you can get, rent, or buy it today, available on video on demand outlets everywhere. Just check it out. Type in Happy Happy Joy Joy, or you can go ahead to their Facebook page, Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story today, and go ahead, like it on Facebook, and you'll get more information on how you can go ahead and order and watch Happy Happy Joy Joy. I want to ask you, Ron, real quick, heading back to you, you know, since you caught up on speed and you've seen now what I have appreciated at that point in time, is there any favorite sketch or favorite character that sticks out to you most? I mean, I know people all the time talked about Powdered Toast Man, of course, Ren and Stimpy themselves, so many different characters, Mr. Horse. I want to know if there's any that stuck out to you that, you know, once you finished viewing so many episodes of Ren and Stimpy.
Boy, you know, that's a tough question because, of course, Ren and Stimpy are just so lovable in their own unique way. And so it would be hard to even choose between those two. But I guess, you know, how can you not love Powdered Toast Man? So we'll go with that. We'll try to mix it up a little. We'll go with Powdered Toast Man on my side.
Okay, fair enough. And I remember the voice for that was radio legend Gary Owens, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay. I just going way back for a lot of people out there. But I know the show actually itself, I looked it up earlier today and doing some research, and I noticed a very, very a great amount of actors and notable personalities that were actually part of it as far as the voice cast, from Mark Hamill, Randy Quaid, just Gilbert Gottfried, so many that I didn't remember. I remember Gilbert Gottfried briefly as far as his voice, but I didn't remember all those other great voices in the hand. But Kimo, is there a favorite sketch or episode or character that you also have some fond memories after watching the show?
Yeah, bear with me. I'm trying to escape this music.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm at a casino, and literally everywhere you walk, there's just a speaker. So the further I walk away, the more speakers I find. So
I'm in here. I'm here in Vegas, so I know of As You Speak every single day.
But yeah, I will say, fan club to me, Stimpy's fan club, that was to me the one that really, I guess, hit me the most as far as just how deep the psychosis was of that one. That show goes really, you really, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of layers to that one. So that one show really was where I was like, wow, these guys are really different. So that would be my episode.
I'll tell you guys, I don't know how many, when you do these interviews, how many actually can tell you specific sketches or episodes, but I can tell you firsthand, for me, as much as I love Powdered Toast Man and all the other stuff that they did on the side and all their main stuff they did when they were in space, or whether they're in a haunted house or what have you, for me, it's Mad Dog Hoek and Killer Cadogan. I'm sorry,
Nice.
for me, every single time.
Yeah.
I even had a shirt of them that I actually wore to such an extent that it became so holy because it was such a poorly made shirt that it had so many holes in it. I looked like I was an extra on Michael Jackson's Thriller video there. It was just so many holes in it. And I just finally had to throw it away about 15 years in, but it was such a great experience for me. And I still, to this day, if I watch it, I know I'm going to have tears rolling down my eyes. Just
Yep.
And that was the thing with them. They for me, it brought, as someone who loved his Saturday morning cartoons and his weekday cartoons, but to me, when I was an early adult in my 20s, watching that brought a whole new experience. Ron, I want to ask you this. You talked about, before we get into the creator himself, John and all that, one of the creators, obviously the one that people talk about the most. I want to know the influence of this show, as you guys describe it, because it did have such an influence on adult cartoons that we now have even to this day.
Yes. So it was really unique in that it was one of the first cartoons, certainly on television, that hid a lot of adult humor in, quote, a children's cartoon. And that's something, too, that we found really pretty incredible. And much to Vanessa Coffey's credit for standing by the creative team and really pushing it through, as much as she could, is that it aired on Nickelodeon. Like, it was supposed to be for kids like 5 to 10, which it was.
I know MTV aired some episodes at given points in time, but yeah, mainly it was a Nick at Night deal, which was kind of shocking.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And MTV picked it up simply because sorry, lost you there for a second.
It's because part of that Viacom love that they're showing there.
Yeah, well, and they picked it up because what was happening is, like, Billy West had a story where he's saying, I was walking across the street in New York. I saw this bar was packed. It's 9 a.m. on a Sunday. And somebody popped out and he's like, what's going on in there? And he's like, oh, it's a Ren and Stimpy party, dude. And he's like, oh my God, it's college kids. So that's why MTV picked it up. And they didn't originally develop it because they weren't spending kind of money that Nick was trying to develop animating programs. So that's why it didn't premiere on MTV.
But I'll tell you what, they got some love from it. Obviously Nick at Night, it started a lot of things in as far as the creation of the Adult Swim and that whole outlet that it's become. Kimo, one of the things that, obviously by putting it on Nickelodeon, and it gained the platform that it did, it also, your documentary touches a lot on the stuff that went on behind the scenes, not only creation of the series and how it came to be on Nickelodeon, but also the creators themselves, especially John, and I'm going to say this, I say this with a hard C, so I apologize, John Kricfalusi, which I'm sure everybody else says it that way too, but I noticed you said it, Ron, with a soft C, John Kricfalusi, and let's just say, your story does go into detail as far as telling his side of things, and also obviously what went on with him, the constant in battles that were going on behind the scenes. Was that to you guys just as interesting as covering the show itself?
Yeah, it was. There was so much. You have a lot of personalities, a lot. You got basically all the artists in their 20s, and there's some strong personalities, and whenever you put a bunch of strong personalities in a room in a creative environment, you're going to get some great stuff that comes out of it. And I'm sure if you were in back then, as one of these artists, it would have been some trying times as well. But yeah, I mean, the personalities and the way that they dealt with all that, and then at the same time they're putting out this amazing product. I mean, of course, it was fascinating, and it's still to this day it's fascinating how the show even got done at some points, you know. So you know, there was you know, they would do the cartoon all day long, and then a couple of the guys would break off and start to come up with music for the show. So they would go to the studio, the recording studio, for another 3 or 4 hours and work on music for the episodes. I mean, you know, that just wouldn't happen now. So it just the personalities and the conflicts of how they resolved all that was you know, of course, very fascinating.
And you guys cover that in detail with tremendous interviews that you have, not only of you know, the creators and whatnot, but also the actual voice acting talent themselves, and some of the great things, you know, the people that were part of it on a day-to-day basis that could see actually all this stuff that was going on. I know before we go into one of those individuals that you also interviewed, or at least talk about and discuss during the actual documentary itself, the show actually got greenlit for a soft reboot in the early 2000s, I believe, for Spike TV. You also go, I think if I remember correctly, when I watched it, you guys go into detail a little bit about that failed attempt. I'm going to say failed because it unfortunately didn't materialize the way I wanted to attempt as well to reboot it at that point in time. Correct, Ron?
Yes, that's correct. So it was rebooted. It ran for a limited number of episodes. I don't even know if all 6 aired, but I'm blanking. But yes, it was. You know, much of the original crew was not involved in that. I mean, certainly John was, and you know, it was the original series was kind of like this lightning in a bottle. You know, it really, everybody really balanced each other's personalities out. You know, from the gross out to the more, you know, psychological aspects, psychosis, you know, some of the underlining themes that were missing at times. When, you know, when you see, I think, you know, there's so many great episodes, but when you see an episode that doesn't hit 100%, it's a lot of times because it seems like those elements are a little bit out of balance. But man, when they were in balance, you know, there's a reason we're talking about it 30 years later, you know, that those original couple seasons.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you know, there was pressure to make the show grosser and crazier,
Yeah.
and sometimes when you just force that, and that's all you have to work with, you're going to
Mhm.
lose what we say in the documentary. You lose the heart, you know, and you
Yeah.
lose that. You need that balance of heart. It can't just be 100% gross out. It has to have
Mhm.
that heart, you know. So that's kind of what was missing.
You talked about capturing lightning in a bottle, Ron, and Kimo, I want to ask this to you as well. Capturing that lightning in a bottle, they tried to. Viacom did with a revival on Spike, and unfortunately, I think I read up that only 3 of the 6 aired. But again, I'm sure I think the 6 is somewhere available somewhere now on home video, DVD, Blu-ray, what have
Yeah,
you, in some
that's right.
format. I want to ask. Recently, the go-ahead was made by Viacom once again, because they own they own the rights to it, that they're going to, as part of reviving Beavis and Butthead and some other things that they're doing, because as they do in Hollywood, you know, and I know that rebooting everything is now on the table for pretty much everything at this point in time. Ren and Stimpy is going to be rebooted, sans John Kricfalusi, for, I think, what was it, a 2021 start date possibly, although, you know, at these point in time it's just tenuous at best. But rebooting Ren and Stimpy for a new audience. And that's something I want to ask you guys. First off is, Kimo, the go-ahead was able to go, the Viacom was able to go ahead and reboot this with the imagining of doing it without John Kricfalusi. Do you think this is the right move for Viacom to do? Do you think it will actually reach the new audience? You know, because I've got lots of questions when it comes to that part of the story.
Well, you know, you're always going to have the curiosity, right? So the people that love the show, they're going to be curious, and they're going to want to tune in to see how it's being made and if it's funny or not. You know, you're always going to have that separation between the hardcore fans that grew up with it, that are probably going to watch it now and or watch the new version of it, and they're not gonna. It's just not gonna hit with them because first of all, the nostalgia value's not gonna be there anymore for them. But I mean, you know, people ask us this question all the time, and I, you know, I wish them the best of luck on rebooting it. I personally don't think it'll probably do that well. I mean, but then again, it may find a whole new audience that knew nothing about the first run, and this is just a new show to them. So, you know, best of luck to them. But I think those hardcore fans will probably maybe not gravitate toward it. We'll say.
Well, and that's something I want to ask you too, Ron, is, you know, one of the things, if you're able, they're doing it again without John, they're doing it with a whole new impetus in mind, knowing our culture today than what it was 20 years ago. Can Ren and Stimpy still be as funny in 2021 as it was in 1991? And can they cross the same lines? Because in our current cancel culture, I think that's going to be hard to do.
Well, I mean, you know, John has an interesting quote in the documentary, and he talks about understanding that what makes these shows great, it's not just the characters, it's the artists behind the characters. So it really comes down to who is going to, you know, be running that engine, and can they capture the essence of the characters, but bring them into, like you said, modern day. Even if the subject matter itself isn't referential to current news, etc., that they manage to capture the essence of the heart and the psychosis and just some of the silliness, you know, and that's a really hard balance, but it just remains to be seen. And look, if they manage to do that and capture that spirit, I imagine it will be very successful. And to Kimo's point, there'll be a lot of fans, new fans that didn't even see the old show or will now go back and watch the old show. They just know they love this new entity.
And one last thing I want to touch on, Kimo, before we give you guys the opportunity once again to pitch to people why they need to check out this awesome documentary. That is Robin Bird, who is also a part of this tale per se, behind the scenes. A super fan that got into a type of relational situation that became very controversial with John Kricfalusi, and that's stated in the documentary. She is now spearheading a petition to stop this reboot, which is now at 11,000 signatures as of we're recording this. I want to ask you this. Although it's not enough to stop this reboot per se, it is enough to get the attention of Viacom. Do you think ultimately that something like this could stop Ren and Stimpy from being, you know, a reboot actually coming on the air?
Well, you know, I don't know what the maximum number of signatures you need before it turns the table, but I mean, you know, Viacom's a big company, you know, and if they think that they can make money from the show, that's probably, you know, probably the direction they're going to go. I have no idea, to be quite honest, if you know, there may be a little bit of an impact. There may be a huge impact. I just don't know. A little difficult to answer that question, but I'll let Ron chime in.
Oh, you know, it's you know, kind of us as filmmakers, and I think what's more interesting is like, well, why, you know, what, I mean, I understand Robin's point of view. And so it'll just be really interesting to see, is there any way to achieve a balance where the victims that have suffered at the hands of John can be made whole and not feel like their message isn't being heard or their voices aren't being heard, and the fans that love the show can still be fulfilled? And I am not the guy to answer that question, but I do think it brings up some interesting issues. And I certainly think that, you know, both sides need to sit down and just say, hey, you know, what is it can we do here where, you know, it can be a win-win, and then it's ultimately going to come down to the people involved. It's certainly not up for Kimo and I to make that call.
Absolutely. No, that's understandable. Yeah, I can totally agree with that. It's a very touchy subject. It's a very something that you guys outline in your documentary, and obviously her reasons that she feels is just, and hopefully there will be some type of an agreement that is made, hopefully some down the line that both sides can feel that they're happy with. that we can still appreciate Ren and Stimpy for a new audience going forward. Because I like to see at least them give it a try. But again, as we know in Hollywood, we'll have to wait and see. Once again, before we head on out, I'm talking to Kimo Easterwood and Ron Cicero, the directors of Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story that you can get today everywhere, available now, direct on video outlets everywhere. And before we head on out, guys, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you guys. Just your thoughts on why people should check out this awesome documentary. Ron, I'll go with you first.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're interested in entertainment, you're interested in comedy, you're interested in animation, you're interested in social issues, you're interested in psychology of just artists and people in general. I mean, this is such a huge adventure for Kimo and I. You know, we spent 4 years on the project, and it really opened our eyes to so many different subjects. And so, you know, our goal was always to make a documentary that would satisfy the hardcore fan, but would also find a broader audience to address some of the questions that we see with a whole host of artists, whether it be Michael Jackson or others. So don't think just because it's about Ren and Stimpy that you can't find something there that is interesting or of interest. So
yeah, I echo all that, and I would say also that there's a bit of a cautionary tale involved. So if you're a up and coming animator, artist, whatever, and you can kind of see some of the mistakes that were made, maybe learn from them, that'd be great. But yeah, and there's just a ton of archival, amazing art that we got that a lot of people haven't seen before, a lot of footage that nobody has seen before. From when they first got into LA. I mean, just some really great stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was a lot of work. Like Ron said, it was 4 years, but you know, sit down for an hour and 40 minutes and watch some amazing personalities and you know, and some amazing art. And I hope people will do that.
I hope people will do that indeed, so they can go ahead and get started at anywhere they can get really pretty much rent or buy. Available today on video on demand, wherever you can get Amazon, iTunes, YouTube, Vudu, Microsoft, Google Play, Fandango. It's all there for you, starting at $6.99 just to rent, or if you want to buy, it's just a little bit more. Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story. You want to check it out today, available on demand everywhere. Guys, Ron Cicero, Kimo, it's just been so great having you on the program. I'm hoping to bring you back on again at some point in time down the line when it's convenient for you. Good luck on those casinos.
Thank you.
Don't spend too much money gambling. Believe me, I live in here, Vegas. I should know most, firsthand. But again, guys, it's just been great having you on the program, and I look forward to bringing you back right here at the Pop Culture.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right.